So just a few housekeeping notes before we get started in today's presentation. Before we start, I'd just like to go over a few things. This presentation is being recorded to ensure a quality program. Please remain muted. Questions can be asked throughout the presentation through the Q&A function, and we will go over those at the end of the presentation. So I'd love welcoming everyone back to, again, the North Kansas City's Hospitals Healthy Living series. And I'm just going to introduce Lindsey Moore. She is our clinical dietitian here at North Kansas City Hospital. And she has been with us for about 3 years now. And Lindsey, I'm going to turn this over to you. Thank you so much for joining us in today's discussion on label reading.
Yes, thank you. So today we're going to be talking about label reading and just how to read a nutrition facts label. Let me see. There it goes. So to start off with the purpose of these, people look at food labels or nutrition facts labels for a variety of reasons, whether that's geared towards weight loss, diabetes, heart health, kidney disease, or really any medical condition. But food labels are intended to make it easier for you to make quick, informed decisions for your eating plan, with the overall goal of how to use this information more effectively and easily to better one's health. But I do want to point out, before we kind of go through this a little bit more, that health and nutrition is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's really finding what works best for you that's sustainable lifelong. So this may or may not mean looking at and using the nutrition facts label, because you do not have to look at labels to make good decisions for your health. It's just one tool out of many. This is generally what a nutrition facts label looks like. We're going to kind of go through each section one at a time, break down, talk more about them. But generally, this nutrition facts label will change depending on the food and beverage product. Each label contains product-specific information such as serving size, calories, nutrient information, with a footnote that explains the percent daily value and gives a number of calories used for general nutrition advice. So the example we're going to be talking about today is referring to lasagna. Up at the top, the first thing you will see on a food label is the serving information of their serving size. All nutrient amounts shown on your food label, such as calories, sodium, carbohydrates, etc., all refer back to the serving size. You want to pay attention to the serving size and how many servings are in a container. With this example, one serving of lasagna refers to 1 cup or 227 grams. The 1 cup is referring to like your 1 cup measuring cup, 8 ounces, and then the 227 grams is the weight of the food. So if you're using a food scale instead. If you ate 2 cups of lasagna, you would be consuming 2 servings. That is 2 times all the information shown on the food label. So you will need to double the nutrient information, calorie amounts, etc., as well as the percent daily values. In total, with this product, there's 4 cups in 1 container. But most importantly, I would say with the serving size, it is not a recommendation on how much you should eat or drink. This is just how all the nutrients are calculated. So this is not how you determine how much you should actually eat. So you might be thinking, well, then what should I use to determine my portion sizes, my serving sizes? Lots of different techniques out there. 2 of the most common ones that I like to encourage are mindful eating, intuitive eating techniques, and the MyPlate method. More specifically with mindful eating, this really incorporates just being more aware of your eating habits, the sensations you experience when you eat, and the thoughts and emotions you have about food. The goals of mindful eating are to eat to maintain overall health and well-being, learn how to appreciate food more often, and really fuel and nourish the body and to feel better after eating. Some tips on how to incorporate more of mindful eating to help determine portion sizes would be eating slowly, taking time with your meals, try to minimize distractions while eating, and really listen to your body's physical hunger cues and fullness cues. Let those physical cues determine portion sizes and timing of meals. So if you're hungry, that's your body telling you we need energy, we need to eat. But if you're full, that's kind of a good stopping point. At the same time, keep in mind the 4 to 5 hour rule. This just means when we typically go longer than 5 hours without eating, we just tend to overeat because we've just gone so long without that nutrition. Because some people don't always have those hunger and fullness cues. So it's really the balance of listen to your body, but kind of keeping in when we go longer than 5 hours without eating, we tend to overeat. And my favorite rule with mindful eating is that there are no forbidden foods. Moderation of all foods is key. The plate method is another tool you can use. Helps you monitor your portion sizes and tells you what foods to have on your plate. I tell people your plate does not need to look like this 3 meals a day all the time. So it's just kind of a general try to most often, where you make about 1/4 of your plate, a lot of your carbohydrate, starch, grain foods, 1/4 of your plate protein, and the other half a fruit or a vegetable. And then if you can, a serving of low-fat dairy. So sometimes this is just nice, is a good starter for where to even begin with portions. So this is another tool you can use, but not all of your foods work out perfectly where you can section it off like this. What I recommend doing, use it as a checkoff list. As long as you're getting those components in your meal, that's a perfect balanced meal. So kind of keep those 2 tips in mind, the plate method, your hunger and fullness cues when you're really determining how much you want to eat. Under the serving information, you'll find the calories. Calories are just another word for energy. Calories are essential to keep the body alive, and we need this energy to fuel the body for everyday movement, ranging from breathing to running. But consuming too many calories is just one factor that can lead to weight gain. Your individual needs will be higher or lower depending on several factors such as age, sex, height, weight, activity level, and medical conditions. But just to kind of put this into perspective of where this 280 falls, general range of calories is anywhere from 1,200 to 2,500 calories a day. There are lots of cases where you need less or more than that general range. But this example refers to 280 calories in 1 serving of lasagna. Next, you'll find all of your nutrients listed below. Food labels show some key nutrients that do impact our health, like your fat, cholesterol, sodium, carbohydrates, protein, and vitamins and minerals. And the goal with this is to look for foods that contain more of the nutrients you want to get more of and less of the nutrients you may want to limit. To start with fat, we need fat in our diet. This is a slow-burning source of energy that we need to absorb several vitamins and minerals. Plus, it really increases our fullness with meals and snacks, so we don't get hungry quickly. Generally, we get fats from all of our oils, butters, margarine, salad dressings, nuts, seeds, avocados. There are 4 different types of fats in our diet, and not all fats are equal. And we'll talk more on that through the next couple slides. But 4 types of fats would be your polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats, saturated fats, and trans fats. When you look at your food label, you'll see how it says total fat, 9 grams, saturated fat, 4.5 grams, and 0 grams of trans fat. On your food label, total fat is referring to your saturated fat plus your trans fat plus your polyunsaturated fat plus your monounsaturated fat. That's why when you look at this, that's why 4.5 doesn't equal 9. It's because they didn't list the 2 unsaturated fats. And they're not required to on your food labels, it's just assumed. So with this example, that's where the other fat is coming from. General recommendation on how much fat we consume. Again, this could vary. This is going to differ from person to person, but generally 50 to 75 grams a day. Generally choosing foods with less than 5 grams of total fat per serving, and then choosing foods with less than 2 grams of saturated fat and 0 grams of trans fat per serving. The American Heart Association recommends about 5 to 6% of your individualized calories come from saturated fats, which if we're talking about 2,000 calories a day, that's about 13 grams. Food labels can be very sneaky. Products can be listed as 0 grams of trans fat, if they contain less than 0.5 grams of trans fat per servings. So what they'll do is they'll make the serving size really, really tiny, like 1/8 of a pie, but you find yourself eating a normal slice, that can slowly accumulate. As long as you're limiting those types of foods, you're going to be okay. But if you're curious to really see if a product has trans fat, you can look at the ingredient list for the word partially hydrogenated oils. The different types of fat we eat, that's what affects our blood cholesterol. Saturated fat and trans fats, these increase our risk of heart disease. Unsaturated fats, these are going to help reduce our risk of heart disease. Saturated fats and trans fats, good little visual I like to remember it by. These are typically solid at room temp, just because that's how it can sit in our arteries, like your butter, margarine, coconut oil, whole fat dairy, and a lot of your high fat meats. And we'll talk more on those. Unsaturated fats, these are generally liquid at room temperature because they just flow right through. So that's pretty much all of your other oils like olive oil, avocado oil, nuts, seeds, and avocados. Recommended to do more of your low-fat dairy, like 1%, or skim milks, low-fat yogurt, low-fat cottage cheeses. The next thing you'll see on your food label is the cholesterol. Cholesterol is a fat-like substance that's made in our liver, and that is found in certain foods. The body does need cholesterol, but too much can increase our risk of heart disease and stroke. General sense, cholesterol comes from animal products. But one of my favorite fun facts, nutrition-wise, is this cholesterol that you see on your food label has no effect on our blood cholesterol, just a completely different type of cholesterol. Instead, what affects our blood cholesterol are saturated fats, trans fats, and simple carbohydrates. And we'll talk more on those simple carbohydrates. Underneath the cholesterol would be your sodium. Sodium is an important electrolyte that we need to live. But kind of like cholesterol, too much is not good. Generally recommending to limit sodium to 2,000 milligrams daily. That sounds like a high number, but just a tiny teaspoon of salt contains 2,300 milligrams of sodium. And even those who do not add salt to their foods may take in far too much sodium just in general processed foods. So if you are looking at a food label, anything with less than 140 milligrams is considered low sodium, which would be a good option. If it has less than 35 milligrams, it's considered very low sodium. Less than 5 is considered no sodium. And as a general sense with a lot of things, anything less than 5 calories, less than 5 on the sodium, less than 5 of carbohydrates is considered none. But this is where it gets tricky. If a front of a package says reduced sodium, less sodium, or lower sodium, they've just taken 25% out, but it may or may not be low sodium. So my favorite example is reduced sodium soy sauce. It still has 700 milligrams of salt in it. So always wanting to double check the back in the milligrams. Then you have your carbohydrates. We need carbs in our diet as well because they provide energy for the body, especially to our brain and our nervous system. Carbohydrates is the food group that also affects our blood sugars, which gets broken down to glucose. Carbohydrates pretty much come from all of your bread, rice, pasta, all of your beans, legumes, fruit, milk, yogurt, and then 3 of your starchy vegetables, your peas, corn, potatoes, and a lot of your sweetened snacks. Underneath your total carbohydrates, it mentions your dietary fiber and total sugars. These are already included in that carbohydrate amount. So this example says we have 34 grams of carbohydrates, 4 grams of fiber, 6 grams of total sugars, and 0 grams of added sugars. This is really similar to what we were talking about with the different types of fats. The other type of carbohydrate that is not on there are your starches. All carb foods will either fit under the starch category, the fiber category, or the sugar category. And that's what incorporates the total carbs. You see how it's indented? It's just telling you what that's made up of. So if they were to list the starch in grams, it would all add up to be 34. Then you'll see under your total sugars and then the added sugars, there's no added sugars, but there's 6 total sugars. That's referring to the natural sugars. They just didn't list that one again. Natural sugars refer to sugars naturally present in many nutritious foods and beverages, but then added sugars refers to the sugar that's added during processing of foods. And that's the type of sugar we want to limit. And we'll talk more on that as well. So to kind of put this into perspective for the carbohydrates, the recommendations about 45 to 65% of your calories should come from carbohydrates. I know that's not in grams, because to give you a gram amount is just really hard because everyone's different. And again, depending on, your medical history, but typically I tell people, try to get at least 30 carbs at each meal. But sometimes that could range up to 75 carbs per meal. Snacks, it can be as little as 0 if you want, but we can go up to 30 grams of carbohydrates for snacks. With your fiber goal is about 25 to 30 grams a day, or as tolerated. A good source of fiber contains about 2.5 to 4.9 grams per serving, and a great source of fiber contains greater than 5 grams per serving. When it comes to added sugar, we do want to limit our added sugar intake. The recommendation is less than 9 teaspoons or 36 grams per day for men, and then women's less than 6 teaspoons a day or 25 grams. Consider that about one 12-ounce can of soda contains 8 teaspoons, which is 32 grams of added sugar. So there's not a lot of wiggle room there. When you're deciding what types of carbohydrates to eat, not all carbohydrates are equal as well. Try to choose your complex carbs and limit your simple carbs. Doing more of your whole grains, beans, legumes, all fruits, and then those 3 starchy vegetables, peas, corn, potatoes. These guys just have a lot more vitamins, minerals, and fiber to keep you full, help lower cholesterol, and a lot of benefits for the body. No food's off limits, so you'll notice it says limit, not avoid. Just smaller portions every once in a while of your simple carbohydrates like juice, soda, sugar, candy, white breads, and white pastas. They just have a lot less nutrients, highly processed, and not a lot of fiber. But overall, the key with carbohydrates, I would say in most situations, is carbohydrate moderation. We still need those carbs for energy, but anything in excess isn't great either. So just spread consistently throughout the day, small portions at each meal. Then you have your protein. Protein is important because it's required for tissue repair, building lean muscle mass, immune system function, hormone and enzyme production, and lots of other things. Protein is pretty much what we need for basic building blocks in our body. Protein will come from all of your meat, all of your fish and seafood, eggs, a lot of your dairy, like yogurt, cheese, cottage cheese, all of your beans, nuts, seeds, and tofu, to list a few. Protein recommendation, generally about 10 to 35% of your calories, but again, this will change. If you're kind of generally wanting to know how much protein is a good source of protein, try to aim for about 10 to 30 grams per snack and per meal. When you're choosing what types of proteins, try to do more of your lean protein. This would be like 90% lean beef or higher, skinless chicken, pork chops, turkey, all fish and seafood, and eggs. Try to do more of your round and loin cuts of beef and pork and trimming that visible fat. But don't forget, there's a lot of great plant-based protein options as well, whether that's beans, lentils, soy products, like your tofu, edamame, tempeh, nut seeds, also your nut butters like peanut butter and almond butter, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, and quinoa. Doing more of your lean cooking methods like bake, broil, grill, steam, poach, just trying to limit the deep fat frying and trying to limit those processed meats like your deli meats, your bacon, sausage, bologna, hot dogs, turkey, sausage, etc. But small portions every once in a while, perfectly fine. Underneath the protein, you'll find the vitamins and minerals. Vitamin D, calcium, and iron, potassium are all nutrients on your food label that Americans generally do not get the recommended amount of. Because diets higher in these vitamins and minerals can reduce the risk of developing osteoporosis, anemia, and high blood pressure. So this is something they have changed with the updated food label, is just different vitamins and minerals. Typically, we get vitamin D from your dairy, eggs, fish, and seafood, or anything that's been fortified with vitamin D, which is really commonly found in orange juice and plant-based milks. Similar to calcium, calcium and vitamin D usually go hand in hand in a lot of foods. You'll get this in your dairy or any calcium fortified products like orange juice or soy milk. Iron we get from a lot of our red meats, beef and pork, just trying to do more of those lean cuts, beans, soy products like tofu and soy milk. And then potassium, you're really going to get potassium from all of your fruits and vegetables. So just trying to strive for a variety of those. Then you have your percent daily value on the side. Percent daily values are for your entire day. This is based off 2,000 calories. So a food item with 12% daily value of fat provides 12% of the total calories that that person may need, who needs 2,000 calories. But do keep in mind, you may need more or less than that 2,000 calories a day, which is also going to mean you may need more than 100% or less than 100% of the daily value for all those nutrients listed. As a general sense, low is 5% or less and high is 20% or more. Trying to aim low in saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and aiming high in vitamins, minerals, and fiber. You might notice that some of like your protein, your total sugars, and your trans fat, they don't have a percent recommended. And if there is no percent, that means that there's just not been a recommendation for the total amount to eat in a day. So we have gone through a lot of really good stuff today. So I just kind of wanted to summarize a couple bullet points for y'all to take home. And that is, people look at these food labels for a variety of reasons. But whatever the reason may be, use this information more effectively and to better your health. And again, this may or may not mean using the label or looking at it, because you do not have to look at food labels to make good decisions for your health. I have attached my references I've used today, so feel free to check out some of these resources. And then now we are going to go to questions. So if you have any questions right now, put them in the chat box, Q&A box, and we can answer some of those. But you can always feel free to call me, email me with anything you need. If you would like to see a registered dietitian for one-on-one counseling, all you need is a referral from your doctor. You can come see us. We do in-person and telehealth as well. So give you a couple minutes to see if any questions pop up. You are welcome. Thank you so much, guys, for attending.
All right, that looks like that is all we have for today. Thank you all for joining us, and I want to thank Lindsey Moore for speaking on the importance of label reading. And for those who joined us virtually today, you can find this webinar posted on the North Kansas City Hospital's YouTube channel under our Healthy Living series. And if you have any further questions, feel free to contact Jacqueline Sloan at nkc.org. And I'll be happy to assist you with those questions as well, or even navigate you towards our dietitians. And other than that, that does conclude today's talk on label reading, and we'll see you all next time.